All right, guys, how's it going?
Welcome to the AdoredTV Podcast for this week of March 1st. We actually have a special guest, as you can hear. We have Jim with us.
Oh.
Oh. You can say hello. But we have...
Maybe to say something else, or
yeah.
Goodbye, maybe.
I'm out of here. And then we have Matthew as well.
Hi.
And we have Aurelion.
Hello.
So we are going to be talking about a handful of topics here. First off, we have the new Adrenalin drivers from AMD. Then we're going to talk a little bit about nVidia and one of the GPUs that they have coming out that is kind of leaked. We'll talk a little bit about some price cuts for the Xeons and how that's affecting major OEMs. We got some information about Cloudflare, and we're going to talk a little bit about GDC and its postponement. So let's go ahead and just jump right into the Adrenalin software. We have Jim here because he definitely wanted to chime in on this based on his last video he released.
Yeah. Well, obviously, it does look like AMD have got their act together pretty fast for a change regarding these this driver update. Whether or not, how much of it was to do with me, I'm not entirely sure, but I think I've certainly helped to hurry them up. Obviously, they were working, as we saw in the video, they were working on, making driver improvements. But it's been 7 months since Navi launched, and, there were just more and more complaints. I saw that every day, and people do email me and say, Jim, there's something wrong with these cards, or there's something wrong with these drivers. Can you get in touch with AMD? And it just got to the stage where I think the video simply had to be done.
Of course,
I did it.
I knew there were complaints. I didn't know it was this bad. I was like, it's a few isolated cases. Like, surely it's not that bad. As I'm not subscribed to the AMD subreddit, so I didn't know that it was constant complaints. That's pretty bad.
Well, I personally can say that I experienced especially the blackout.
I was getting issues with Total War Attila and Rome 2. I don't know if that's about the drivers or because they're not terribly well-coded games. But I can say with Attila, there was the occasional driver hang, and the game would recover, and I would still be able to play the game, but there was something going on there.
But with the 5700 XT you've got, Matthew, yeah?
No. Vega 56. I make poor purchasing decisions.
Vega 56 was okay. Come on.
Well,
honestly,
the problem.
Vega 56
no,
was
you don't understand. No, you don't understand. I bought it when it was the most expensive.
Ooh.
Oh.
I bought it for $550.
Oh, during the mining thing?
I didn't think it was gonna get cheaper, so I was like, better do it now.
Just bite the bullet there.
Yeah, I bought my RAM at the most expensive time too. I mean, it's good RAM, but I feel like such an idiot.
Well,
I don't think about that.
And if we look at the 5700 and the 5700 XT and the stability of the drivers for those GPUs versus Polaris, I mean, Polaris is doing extremely stable. I mean, I had a 580 in my main rig for quite a while. I had a did 480 mining with the 580s, 570s and stuff, and those were actually rather stable, especially being underclocked and overclocked and who knows what kind of mix to within an inch of their life.
Mm-hmm. I had 480 for 2 years straight, like June 2016 or whenever the 480 came out to summer 2018.
Yeah, and
it did very well. I mean, never had driver issues.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, for me at least, is I'm taking product recommendations pretty seriously. Right? If I recommend a bad product, that's my reputation that's basically being harmed for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys know that we've got various PC builds, all these different sort of prices over at the website. We've got the mainstream build, which has a RX 5700.
Yeah.
High-end build, $1,500 that comes with the 5700 XT.
Yep.
And, if we're recommending those, and I did actually want to recommend more NVIDIA cards. Nobody ever believes me when I say that, but I did want to recommend more NVIDIA cards. But I was kind of outgunned by Matthew and Donnie. So
yeah,
we went with I remember that, yeah?
Yeah, because now I was all for just recommending AMD CPUs, and that got a lot of pushback.
Yeah. I wanted to use more Intel CPUs as well, but
I just didn't think. Well, it was just like the margin.
Recommending.
Yeah, it's like it's not that they're bad. It's just that why would you when the AMD CPU is like either significantly cheaper or for the same price, a
You've got all
decent bit
the
better?
security problems. That's what bothers
And
me
without
most
the
about the
security
Intel
problems.
Me
CPU.
too.
The security issues, yeah. But getting
Yeah.
back to Navi, or not recommending Radeon, which is what I changed my Twitter handle
Yep.
to as well.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
You see, the thing is, I had a pinned tweet on Twitter that was linking to those PC builds.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's a little bit of money coming in from that, obviously, because my Twitter account is it's busy and there's a lot of people following me. But people wonder if I'm actually serious about all this stuff. Well, I unpinned that tweet because I don't want people actually, clicking on this link and buying PCs with Navi cards that are actually quite expensive for an AMD mid-range card, and then having all these problems with it. That was a big factor for me. I just don't want to really be associated with faulty gear, and I don't want people being disappointed by recommendations from me. So yeah, this is a big thing for me, or I wouldn't have made the video.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't really realize how important the GPU and the drivers for that GPU are in the stability of the system. Overall, I think the primary piece of hardware that causes instability in Windows, for instance, is the GPU drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will
And
be
if
by
you-
far.
Yeah.
If you have a gaming PC, then the GPU is the most important part.
Well, not just that.
Far more important than CPU.
I've had blue screens, I've had crashes from Intel and nVidia drivers as well. Particularly Intel, since I see it at work all the time. We have a lot of iGPUs to deal with. And if you think Radeon drivers are bad,
Yeah, I can only imagine how bad Intel's are.
yeah.
Oh, when AMD and Intel team up, and you get Radeon Vega M, and you don't get a driver for a full year, that's really fun.
Yeah.
That what happened? Was it an entire year before they had a driver for it?
Their last driver was in 2019, and so I'm a big believer in the rule of cool, and I bought a Kaby Lake G laptop, and now I'm regretting that for like a year now.
But not meant to be AMD that was responsible for the drivers for that.
Nobody wants to support it, that's the thing. AMD doesn't want to support it, Intel doesn't want to support it, HP doesn't want to support it, nobody does.
Well, sometimes laptops are a lot like phones where they get updates for, a few months after you buy them, but then they just get abandoned,
Kaby Lake G is bad though, like in terms of support. They
Can't
just-
really say I'm surprised, in all honesty. It was a
Yeah.
rather strange part.
Yeah, that's why I loved it, and I bought it because I'm an idiot.
Really wonder what that was all about.
I have no
honestly.
idea.
Was it just a trial for EMIB or something else? Or
It could have
But
been
they haven't
a
used
proof
EMIB
of concept.
since, so I don't get it.
going to be using it though with
Yeah.
XE though, yeah. So maybe
Yeah.
there was some kind of learning sort of phase there.
Well, and
I
they,
think
yeah.
they may have been
I read
trying...
a rumor.
Go
I
ahead.
read a rumor that was part of Roger's scheme to try to get Intel to buy Radeon. I don't know if I believe that. I think that sounds a little bit far-fetched.
I think it was probably a trial to see if they wanted to start doing more of that and buying Radeon to give them a better boost, but they probably went down the XE route instead
Yeah.
because they felt that they could, save money, do it better, who knows.
That probably has a lot to do with it.
So,
I've got another problem getting back to Navi again,
Mhm.
or AMD graphics cards. It's Unreal Engine is a real problem for me because it's been a monkey on AMD's back for just far, far too long. And you imagine that you're going to pay $1,000 plus for Big Navi 6900 XTX or whatever they call it, and then this 2080 Ti beating card performs more like a 2070 or a 2060. I mean, we see this all the time with Unreal Engine games.
Yeah.
And, I really wish they would do something, just finally do something about this. It really makes it difficult for me to recommend Radeon cards. And I know
I
it's
feel like
only
it's
one
getting better,
game
though.
engine.
it's a pretty popular
getting
game
better,
engine,
yeah.
though.
It's the most
Fortnite
popular.
uses Unreal, right?
Sorry, what was that?
Fortnite uses Unreal, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it will be.
I think
yeah.
it's gotten better with Fortnite. I could be wrong. Let's
More
look
stuff
up some
coming out of
benchmarks.
Epic Games. Yeah.
Let's see.
Maybe it is better. Yeah.
TechSpot just did a 5600 XT versus 2060 comparison. They might have Fortnite on here. They usually do.
And
It
I mean,
performs okay.
Yeah,
seeing the
Fortnite.
amount
Oh.
of
that's interesting.
seeing the
The
amount of patches,
5600 XT beats the 2060. according to TechSpot/Hardware Unbox.
600 XT.
Yeah, 5600 XT over the 2060, just by a few frames.
Okay.
I'll drop the chart. That's
Yeah,
pretty
still,
decent
that's not a bad performance, I guess.
compared
guess
to everything
something about
else.
that. Does the 5600 XT? It doesn't generally beat the 2060 though, does it? It normally comes in just a little behind.
According to Hardware Unbox, it's 3% faster on average at 1080p.
3% faster.
Yeah. So Fortnite's
Right,
looking
okay.
good, I guess.
Uh,
Can't speak for
IDSA
the
with
other
the
Unreal.
BIOS update. I mean, I'm going to be talking about this in the next video as well. This BIOS
Yeah.
update.
Well,
Oh yeah, God. I don't like the 5600 XT. I don't like it.
And this was pure sandbagging, and they hoped that NVIDIA just looked the other way. That's exactly what happened with that 5600 XT. This is not the AMD, or this is not the AMD that I want, yeah? Where they're sandbagging and hoping that NVIDIA throws them a bone. And NVIDIA
Yeah.
never, ever threw anybody a bone. So, I mean, who made that decision? I really have to wonder who made that decision, because it makes no sense to me. They should know that NVIDIA are absolutely merciless, and they would never get anything like that out of NVIDIA. Intel are a different, proposition. I think Intel and AMD are doing a good job of avoiding competition in the PC market, at least. NVIDIA will take any opportunity to put AMD back in their place, and that's exactly what they did by dropping the price of the 2060. I mean, they could have dropped the price of the 1660 Ti instead, right? And that
Yeah.
would have been them admitting that they lost. But instead, they dropped the price of the 2060, and all of a sudden it's like, now we win again. AMD have to release a BIOS update. I mean, dear, why even do that? Why not just release the card at the 26 performance in the first place? The reason why they didn't do it, of course, is because then it would be too close to the 5700 non-XT.
Yeah.
And nobody would want to pay extra money for that card.
yep.
This is not the AMD that I want, yeah? I don't think anybody wants this. And there's a real lack of people talking about this in the tech press.
I'm surprised
it's-
people were okay with that.
Just wonder if they're even thinking it through. I wonder if they even think these things through.
Well, they did. They were thinking through
I
the
would have
pricing
been
tiers.
Yeah. I would have been irritated just having to retest.
I mean, that would have killed it for me. I noticed that Tweaktown really got annoyed by it.
Just mail the equipment back to them, be like, sorry, no review from me. And then just put a scathing one-pager saying, I was going to give you a review for this, but here, let me tell you all the shenanigans that went on.
And this is one reason why I no longer do reviews, because I cannot be bothered being arsed around like this by AMD or any of them. Yeah, they're all the same. Yeah, don't get me wrong. They're all exactly the same. But these last-minute changes, it's brain dead stuff.
I'm glad they can't do
With
this
that
to
card in the
CPU
first place.
coolers.
Sorry, say again, Matthew?
I'm glad they can't do this to CPU coolers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Well, graphics cards are terrible things to review. They really are.
The thing that I was kind of noticing with the huge list of fixed issues and things like that with these latest drivers, the thing that kind of warms my heart just a little bit, makes me feel that much hopeful, is that the whole problem management cycle is too long to actually have been directly affected by your video. So we know that they were already working on these issues before you
Yeah, for
released
sure.
the
They've been
video.
working on it. Yeah. I think
They've
got to hurry up. Yeah. They've got to hurry up.
Yeah, and they probably actually pushed some of these patches into this driver release as opposed to the next because of your video, though. That can happen.
Yeah. Something like that probably happened. Remember, though, during the PCIe, the Polaris PCIe thing, that was less than a week before they got that driver fix out.
Yeah.
So they can do it quickly when they want to. Yeah. There's a lot of bad publicity there. And there's a thing that's worth thinking about, because there's no doubt about it. All these companies are the same when it comes to, if you want action, you're better off slamming them somehow. They only really respond quickly to bad publicity.
Well, the thing
they're all the
is,
same.
with the PCIe stuff, those are just a couple of power allocation mods that they had to make in the driver. And so those are numbers that are quickly able to be modified and then just pushed out without a whole lot of testing.
I did that compatibility mode thing as well, though. So
Yeah.
they did have something else. Yeah.
But this might also be a symptom of general software development, because if you think about, I am a software developer working for several during my life for several big companies, and tends to happen is that there is a roadmap with features that they want to implement, and they get implemented, and then bugs from behind are not so important until they bite an important customer. So I assume in this case, those bugs that they were working on, they were like on the second priority until the community started really crying about it, saying, we don't care your new UI and all that. We want those bugs fixed.
Yeah.
And then they probably just smelled the coffee and said, okay, team, stop what you're doing, fix those bugs, release the new driver, and then we'll see what comes next.
Well, it was at the end of January that they really started to realize that the heat was rising on this.
Well, the problem
is,
Jim pointed out in his video, there's been an outcry since launch on the Reddit site and all that. So the end users are crying out, and they have been, but it wasn't until the press started picking up on it and spreading it even further that it really became a priority for them. And that's kind of a sad thing if you think about it. That they weren't doing it just based on the end users complaining. Yeah, they were putting it in, tier 2 kind of track, but once the press got onto it, then it became a big thing because Jim did his video, and then we had a few other news outlets also make videos about the same thing.
Hardware Unbox had a big one.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was planning on doing that originally, Steve, but it was like just a few days after Jim's, and that was I think I got even more views.
Yeah, and that's probably what drove them.
In all of these big companies, it was the money that talks. So until they really see it that it can hurt their sales or somehow their image, they won't prioritize them. If it's a small bug, so that we don't care. Let's push these other things first.
Yeah, and it definitely shows the responsibility that we have in the media to actually bring these issues to light, not just kind of gloss over them or play fanboy or anything like that. We want to actually report it as it is so that you can make the best decision based on current information. And
what most people don't realize is that such outcries and videos like Jim did, it's actually helping usually the software department, the development side of it, because the engineers usually cry about those things, but it's the business side that says that we have some other things to do first.
We want to add this new feature rather than fix these existing bugs. You see it all the time.
Well,
right.
To finish this part of the podcast on the driver issue, Red Gaming Tech ran a poll yesterday, which I retweeted on Twitter, and it looks like 14% have now said that things are all good. 6% said there's no difference, and 17% were never had an issue. And with that, 63% were only interested in the results. So overall, though, it looks like they've had some success with these driver updates. And we can see again, if we look at the website, Matthew's article, looking at the comments, some people, they've got, it looks like they've had improvement. Some people are now getting black screens when they didn't have it before, though, and that's just the nature of this thing, because maybe you're fixing it for some person and breaking it for somebody else.
Well, you want to know the black screen issue I'm currently having to deal with? Mine's more esoteric. I do a lot of remote desktop to my actual workstation from my laptop or from work, that kind of thing. And whenever I come back from a remote desktop session, like when I come home and log into my workstation, every Chrome window I have open is all just black. The only way I can get it reset is by just launching a new Chrome window. And
that's worse
it resets everything.
I just talked to AMD PR a few hours ago, and
this is on an nVidia GPU.
I explicitly mentioned Chrome was the problem. I said it seems to be on the desktop, black screen. Because by the way, I am now getting black screens as well. I was one of those people who this new driver has made it worse. And I've had 2 black screens since that point. And it always seems to be Chrome. That's the cause of it.
Well, the Chrome windows are black. I still have the desktop. Yeah. But I'm on an NVIDIA GPU, not an AMD. So
Chrome has issues.
The Chrome has issues in how they implement things and how the driver reacts to that. It's kind of a whole ecosystem thing going on.
And if you disable hardware acceleration, it would probably fix it.
Yeah, but who wants to do that?
Exactly.
Well,
I got so many
Crysis-
Chrome tabs that'd be like running Crysis in software. You know,
All we can really say is like, maybe there's been a fire lit under them and they've got on with it and they've got the driver out. It's working for some people, which is great. It's not working for others, which isn't so great. But if they're gonna go and try and fix this with purpose, then you have to say,
well, I think one thing
at least doing what they need to do now.
Yeah, and I think one thing we have to consider is that they probably had it fixed for some of the problems, but not all of them, and decided to push out what they had already to the masses so that they could continue working on the other fringe cases for the black screens. And so we got to give them a little bit of leeway in that, because they're not going to have everything fixed, but at least they pushed out the fix to us for the ones that are running into some of these fringe cases so that we no longer have some of those issues.
Yeah.
And, they probably didn't get a chance to fully vet some of it. Maybe they introduced a new bug or two. I mean, it just goes with the territory.
That's the nature of software development.
Yeah, but at least they're getting the time for these patches out faster so that we can actually start using a more stable or a more fixed version of the driver without having to wait 3 more months for them to finally throw in all of these additional things that they wanted to take care of in a release cycle. So I do like the rapidity of that.
Well, like I said, they're moving to fix it, and that's what's important here, I think.
Exactly.
Basically.
So it's a good news.
Yep. Let's go ahead and talk about our GeForce RTX unknown NVIDIA GPU. Matt, since you wrote this, do you want to go ahead and start us off?
So we got 2 leaked GPUs. One is a 77,552. Oh,
sorry about that. I got disconnected.
let me restart. Okay, so one of these GPUs is 24 gigabytes, probably HBM2 or something. They do have 6 gigabyte stacks now, I believe, and it has a 7,552 CUDA cores, which is about 2,500 more than NVIDIA's current biggest GPU, which is Volta. That is the best scoring GPU on Geekbench 5, which is what it was marked on, but best by far. And then we also have a slightly cut down version, it seems, at 6,912 CUDA cores, and that has 48 gigabytes of VRAM. So
a cut down version that has more RAM than the larger version?
So when I originally wrote this article, I did assume that these were probably 7 nanometer GPUs, some kind of like data center oriented thing. I have thought about it more. Maybe these are multi GPUs, but it is important to know at the very least that these GPUs were run on a NVIDIA driver that isn't available publicly, that has CUDA 11 and that new WDDM 2.7 feature that came to Intel and NVIDIA drivers.
With the amount of RAM that are on these, I 100% myself think that these are going to be data center GPUs.
But what I've been told was Hopper. I'm guessing this is Hopper, yeah?
I'm not familiar with that.
Are you meaning Hooper or
Hopper?
Yeah.
NVIDIA's next architecture. It's called Hopper.
Who's that named after?
A famous cricket.
Hopper. Yeah, it's female, I think. It was female physicist, was? I can't remember. This is embarrassing.
I'm looking it up. Grace Hopper, American computer science.
Oh, yeah.
Huh. And she was a rear admiral. Huh.
Oh, this is what the next one's come. This is well known. It's been out in the press for a few.
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, but from what I was told, and this is a AdoredTV web podcast exclusive. It is a multi GPU.
Okay, did I say?
Yeah, you said you were.
Yeah,
it
was.
Yeah. Now I didn't get this in the article because I thought about this after, but I suspected that it would be multi because that's a really big die and that's a lot of memory.
Yeah.
And apparently it's got an ARM chip in it as well.
Interesting.
For what?
connecting the dies.
Oh,
This is what I've
wonder
been
why they
told,
do
at least.
Just for that.
I think so.
Hmm.
I
I
think that's
wonder why
what.
they need ARM to do that.
Yeah.
is it to try to make it look like a single GPU?
Could be.
I mean, that would probably be the way you have to do it, is to have some kind of interface in front of
Yeah.
the actual GPU to play
Yeah.
like it's the GPU, and then to
Like an
dispatch.
abstraction layer there.
So they built a computer for the computers to talk to each other, and then that's going to go into another. Jesus.
Welcome to computers.
Well, NVIDIA are trying at least, and got to say that up until very recently, they were doing a very, very good job of almost everything they do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they're doing on 7 nanometers, though. This is just a bit of an epic fail by them.
Samsung didn't deliver, I guess,
Yeah.
and that sort of threw a wrench in NVIDIA's plans.
Why go to Samsung in the first place, though? I mean,
They probably offered them a really good deal.
Yeah. I mean,
So I bet they're like retaping or something, maybe making new GPUs because the old ones didn't make sense.
yeah, I've heard one or two stories about them doing that, but you have to wonder
it might have
if
been
AMD
a
had
volume
had a
issue too.
competitive GPU architecture out there, they
They wouldn't have gone
would
for
have been
TSMC.
so far ahead.
Well, you got to
Well,
think of volume as well.
Essentially, though,
I mean, AMD is one of the bigger volume that TSMC is pushing through, and they got their desktop CPUs, their server GPU or server CPUs, and then GPUs for both desktop and server running through them, and they're relatively small on the market if you think about it. Intel's way higher, NVIDIA's way
Yeah.
higher in cells.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine TSMC being strapped with most of NVIDIA's new GPU production. They'd have to build at least one more fab to handle it.
yeah.
When I reported on that, when this news first came out, I also said that like the supply might be an issue for NVIDIA. So the Samsung deal would have seemed perfect. Cheaper GPUs and more supply. You don't have to fight with other guys, especially AMD.
Yeah.
Didn't work out like that.
I
Well-
wonder how much of it is engineering thing as well, though, because you did see Mark Papermaster from like 2017 onwards kept talking about how 7 nanometers was such a tough uplift, and how it required deep collaboration, not just with TSMC but also the CAD guys, the tool guys. NVIDIA aren't the best company at working with others, as we know. So
Well,
I wonder if there's something happened there.
And
Or
AMD,
if it's just been a little bit too difficult. I mean, you've got to say AMD have done a fantastic job on 7 nanometers.
Yeah.
And they had Vega. I mean, Vega 7 nanometers was out November, December, like a year ago. And if NVIDIA doesn't have a 7 nanometer graphics card for the next 6 months or so, although I've been told that they've got to hurry up because of Big Navi. They're really concerned by it. And so they're going to be pushing out a 7 nanometer Titan.
yeah.
That's how
Huh.
concerned they are about it. That's how
I've
concerned they are.
heard whispers that the gaming oriented parts are a long ways away. But
Yeah, I heard that rumor as well. I heard that rumor too, but I don't really believe it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I wonder about that because why
No.
wouldn't maybe at least for like the really high end stuff they could just release whatever kind of like sort of data center oriented thing they have, and then worst case scenario.
That's the thing, is they actually need to. I mean, how long ago was it that the last Volta was released now?
Volta was 2016, 2017, I think.
Sorry, not Volta. The last data center chip was when?
No, Volta's data center.
The large one. The really,
Yeah, that's the biggest GPU that not only that they've made, but the largest GPU ever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah.
And eventually these guys in the data centers are going to want to upgrade, and NVIDIA
Yep.
needs to get something out. But I guess this is what your unknown GPU with 7552 CUDA cores is. It's going to be
Yeah.
Hopper, and
Mhm.
it's an MCM with an ARM controller die or something.
Hmm.
From what I've been told, we'll wait and see on that one.
I wonder why they went with multiple chips, because theoretically they could probably get that many CUDA cores on a single die.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a power
Then
density
again, it's a
issue.
very large die.
Yeah,
with
It'd probably be right under the reticule limit, but theoretically.
yeah.
Well, you got to think of how much the heat dissipation for just the
Yeah.
AMD chiplets are. Imagine putting a GPU under that.
And also price. I mean, like, you're paying once for the bad yields, and again for the size of the chips, because 7 nanometer wafers are expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Although yields are very, very good. But
Yeah,
then
they are
again,
good.
Well, for TSMC,
you don't
do
know
we
that though, like 2 or 3
Samsung's?
years in advance. Though, yeah, you don't know how good the yields are going to be. So
Yeah.
it makes sense to go with smaller chiplet-sized chips. Of course, it does.
Do we know what
It'd be interesting to
Samsung's
see
yields
just how
are?
much they've pulled this off. If they've managed to pull this off, then the funny thing is, right? Both Intel and nVidia are gonna beat AMD to multi-GPU,
That's funny.
and
That's a little bit weird.
it really is bizarre when you think about it.
But
given how
maybe
far
AMD,
ahead
when
they are
AMD
then.
does it, maybe it'll be really good. Who knows?
Could be, but you've got to wonder how much of it is because Radeon Technologies Group has been starved of money
Yeah.
over the last years, which is another reason why I try not to go too hard on them about these driver issues. But they're making money now, AMD. Yeah, they need to fix that stuff.
Yeah, it's like a vicious cycle. It's like you don't really want to invest in a business that doesn't do very well, but that business isn't doing particularly well, or at least it's disadvantaged because it doesn't have a ton of money.
Yep.
But they're not going to get better, on shirt buttons either. Yeah, they need
Yeah.
to-
That's the problem.
And I mean, the thing that AMD
Well, I
is
believe
always...
next year we're going to see AMD's MCM GPU. The one that they were all calling Arcturus. We know it's not Arcturus because we know that that's a single GPU now, the Vega.
Ah.
But
Yeah.
next year, from what I've been led to believe, that this should likely be there. We're only getting 2 years of this Navi or RDNA 1 and 2. I don't know what the next architecture is going to be. Presumably based on the same thing, but
Bet it's
gonna
going to
be
be
different.
serious.
yeah.
Calling it right now. It's
Yeah,
going to be
guys.
called Serious. That's total guess, but if I'm right, it's going to be great.
It could be. I mean, we've had Polaris, we've had Vega,
Yeah.
Arcturus. The thing is, Arcturus isn't actually a white star, unlike Polaris and Vega.
Oh,
So Arcturus is a orange-red star.
I don't know what
I
Serious
never,
is.
I never bothered checking, but it's
Star,
interesting.
yeah. A class A star.
A mega die
Same
GPU
with
called
Polaris.
Beetlejuice. Red all the way.
Red and hot.
Which has been dimming for a while.
Aiming your graphics card after stars. Yeah, it's maybe not the smartest things.
Well, the one thing AMD has always had going for it is they've had Global Foundries as a pretty tight integrated partner, and they even spun them out, so they were even more integrated before. So they are used to developing on a brand new architecture that has the growing pains and things like that. I don't think AMD or nVidia has really done much of that in the past. They've always been, second to a node, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like you said, they don't work well with others. That might be part of their growing pains with Samsung, since their 7
I can
nanometer
imagine
is
those two.
new, and they aren't used to dealing with a new process that hasn't really been tried and true,
And I have worked with Samsung before, obviously. Was it GP 107, 106?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
The smaller Pascals were
let
on
me
Samsung.
see.
Yeah, it's not like they haven't done business with Samsung before. I'm just saying on a new process node that isn't mature.
Yeah.
And Samsung is not TSMC. I mean, NVIDIA cannot lean too hard on them because they're not of the same size and caliber. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So 1050 to 1050 Ti are Samsung. I did not know that.
Oh, the 10 series as well.
Yeah.
Flash Turing was also there. Maybe I did and I just forgot about it. But yeah, Pascal as well. They had a couple of chips, a couple of Pascal lower end chips that were at Samsung as well.
Yeah.
I reckon that, your 7552 CUDA cores, it's going to be fast. Yeah, let's be frank. This is going to be really, really quick.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm assuming that the
Well-
ARM chip in there is going to make it a little better too. I would be really interested to see whether it presents as a single GPU or if it's two GPUs and the ARM is just to help direct
It'd be a
traffic
game
or something.
changer. I mean, if they could bring this to every market, like a chip.
But it would be expensive.
I mean, this is kind of what we've been talking about, what AMD should have been doing a while ago, is making GPU chiplets and having some kind of I/O die that directs traffic. It sounds like...
The problem is, this ARM chip is probably makes it significantly more expensive. I bet it does.
Maybe. I mean, a cell phone chip
Is
isn't very
so it's going to
expensive.
cost an arm and a leg anyway.
Yeah. But also consider like the development you have to do, the software, the firm, how you make it like work together, how you make it communicate with the system you're putting it in.
They're no strangers to ARM either. NVIDIA, though,
Oh
obviously.
yeah,
Tegra
like
have been there
Tegras.
for years now.
Yeah, they're
So-
probably using something from their Tegra line. I bet you they have
Yeah.
some IP from that.
I would imagine so.
I think they only use the default though. They use like the Cortex cores. They don't actually like customize the cores.
Not actually sure about that. I can't remember.
I
It's
don't
so long
think
since
they
I've
do.
actually looked at Tegra.
The Tegra that comes in the Switch is only the Cortex cores.
One thing though that makes me think whether we will see these multi-chiplet GPUs in the game market would be, I'm not a hardware architect by far, but I'm wondering if it introduces some kind of a latency between the CPU and the end result of the GPU, which
Yeah.
would make
Could.
it unsuitable for games.
I mean, anytime
Suitable
you
for-
throw something into the pipeline, it's going to introduce a little bit of latency.
Yeah.
But-
So I wonder if for gamers it would make sense. I mean, for big data, yeah, but I don't know.
I don't think big data is really as concerned about that latency.
No,
Exactly. That was my point actually.
it's more graphics thing than compute, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. And
So in
so,
graphics, it might be an issue to introduce this chiplet design, or I'm not saying unsurmountable issue, but just something they have to think more about.
well, they could be pushing it into the data center first because they can bear
Right.
the cost of development, but also they can bear the downside of being first to market, which is the latency and the bugs that are going to have to be polished and worked out, so that they can then introduce it to the more latency sensitive applications like end users for gaming.
Yeah.
So I see it as a very good proving ground for this technology if what we're assuming is correct. I mean, it could just be an ARM chip in there for something else that we don't know about.
Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
could literally be anything, couldn't it?
Yeah.
But at least they're doing some kind of innovation, which is something that obviously I applaud.
Yeah.
Mm,
Anytime anyone is doing innovation, it's a win for the end users.
Yeah, I mean, even RTX, I know it's a bit of a meme in many circles, but
Yeah.
you know, they were the first. Yeah, you can't take that away from them ever.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
Well, the only reason it's a meme is because it's the first gen. It's underpowered for what it's actually trying to do, but you can use it to some degree, like we have seen in games already where they're doing reflections on water and windows and things because they can't afford to do it globally. And so next gen and the gen after that, that's going to be when RTX comes to its own, and hopefully DXR and all these other technologies will come to the forefront as well and be just as strong competitor GPUs.
obviously, AMD are going to have their thing in Big Navi as well. I mean, I haven't heard anything to suggest it's going to be anything fantastic. Yeah? It's not like real ray tracing again.
Yeah, it's a hybrid.
Could even just be on par with Turing, maybe
Yeah.
even a little bit behind. I'm not sure. I don't
Yeah.
know if AMD has the whole noising thing down or not.
Well, we know since it's a
But I don't really
console.
know how you can do ray tracing without denoising, in all honesty.
Yeah.
So they must have something like that coming.
AMD doesn't have any AI chips.
Well, they
It's
I mean,
a
not
real
that we know of.
failing at the company for me.
they don't
Just not
have
really
any.
doing enough in that.
Yeah, I don't think they have any specific hardware that's for machine learning and such, but they do push machine learning and those kinds of technologies on their compute server side as one of the features that they have put into OpenML stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they've got that, haven't they? Well, with that, I will leave you guys to get on with the rest of the show. I've
Well,
got to
thanks
go on
for
and get
joining
some
us.
stuff done. I'm pretty sure you'll see me in future shows as well.
Of course, we always extend that invite, so
Yeah.
you're more than welcome to stop in whenever you'd like.
I certainly will do so.
Okay.
I'll catch you later, guys.
Thanks.
See ya.
So, for our next topic, we are actually going to talk about some price cuts for the Intel Xeon scalable processors, the second gen stuff. This is their
Yeah.
current lineup. Matthew, you got a article about that if you want to lead us.
Yeah, and I spent like half an hour making this table.
It looks pretty.
I had two choices: French homework or table, and I chose table. And I think I would have preferred doing the French homework. Anyways, so as you can see, I actually have this thing in like the thumbnail. So you can say 36% more performance, 42% more performance per dollar. More clock speed. That's basically the difference. Cheaper and more clock speed with these new Xeons. No new Platinums, but the top 2 new Xeon Golds are basically Platinum rebrands, and these are like they're identical CPUs. The 8280 is now known as the 6255R, and instead of being $10,000, it is only $4,000, and that is a price cut of 61%. And we also have the 8276, which is like a slightly lower clock speed version of that. Used to be almost $9,000, and now it's only $2,600. That is a 70% price cut. And then you have now all the other SKUs on this table. You'll notice there's a bunch of asterisks. That's because what they did was, and I think this was partially to cover up how much exactly they cut the prices, but a lot of these new SKUs have more performance, which is a good thing. Because of that, it's hard to directly compare them to CPUs with the same core count. So you notice with the 8270, that is faster, I believe, than the 6230R. So that's why you see a massive 74% price cut, because yes, Intel has cut the price, but they've also lowered the clock speed, so they will sell it for less. And then you also see stuff like the 8268 and the 6248R. That price cut is only 57%, but it would have been higher if the Xeon Gold wasn't also faster. And you'll see that trend down the table. Most of them, the price cut is lower than you would expect because they increased the clock speeds. And in fact, when you get down to the Xeon Silvers and Xeon Golds that are like not very many cores, like the 10 cores and the 8 cores, you'll see that they're actually more expensive, but that's because they're a lot faster.
I mean, and this makes sense from a business standpoint too, so that they don't have to just go and retroactively update their pricing list. They actually have a new SKU that they can sneak in.
It makes them look better too.
Yeah, it's not like we're just discounting all of our existing CPUs. It gives them a new SKU that they can put a new price tag next to and leave it to the purchaser to bring the informed purchase to the table. And if they don't know better and they're just going off of, previous news reports, things like that, they're going to be like, oh, I want the 8280 because that's the best, right? And they'll end up having to pay the original price.
Yeah, so the 8280 still exists. There's also a difference in like sockets. I think these Xeon Golds they can only go up to like 4 sockets or something. The Platinums can do 8. So there are some platform differences. That's definitely factored into the price cut. But if you don't really care about that stuff, and I know some of these features are a little bit niche, then you are effectively getting the same CPU for a fraction of the price.
I remember reading this article, and when I stumbled upon this table, I started daydreaming. Imagine my eyes having this dollar sign imprinted of them. It's just insane when you look at the margins they had. It's just insane.
Well, yeah, and anyone that's in the server business, either a purchaser or seller, knows that they have fat margins on this equipment.
Oh my
God.
As a purchaser, I look at the prices that they charge, and I'm like, holy crap. You look at like a 4-core or a 6-core Xeon, and they're charging twice what an i7, i9 costs just for the Xeon. And yeah, it is a different platform, a different support level, all that kind of stuff. And so there is some value to it. And that's partly why the prices are so fat. But when you get up to these higher end Xeons, they just start inflating the price on an exponential scale. Yeah. And you can see, just to go from 24 cores to 28 cores, it's a huge jump. And you just start to shake your head and go, man, they're definitely gouging. That's why I was so excited with the EPYCs coming out, is it gave a price point alternative, someone you could compare to, somebody to help keep Intel in check.
It's surprising to me that they're deciding to cut the prices by this much, because we keep seeing reports that the CPU shortage will persist for many more months. Maybe there's not as much demand for these specific SKUs, but it is definitely interesting because AMD definitely can't supply that much to hurt Intel that badly. Not yet, anyways.
No, they're definitely supply constrained for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it made me wonder if people were waiting for AMD and not buying Intel even though they could.
I don't know. With the whole Spectre Meltdown family of problems that Intel has had, as people patched those, they needed that performance that they actually lose by implementing those patches. Too. And so it is an immediate issue, but I think part of this is server refresh cycles. I mean, we're coming into the, second year that people have really been considering the Naples and Rome platforms for their server refreshes. And now, especially since they can pick Rome instead of just having to deal with Naples, I think there's a lot of conversion that's going to start happening if AMD or if Intel hadn't made these price cuts.
And Milan is on the horizon, and that's going to come with a pretty nice IPC bump and a power consumption decrease. Not a huge power consumption decrease, but a significant one.
Correct.
Like, you'll probably see, I don't know, maybe like 50% higher power efficiency, or maybe at least 30%.
Yeah.
And that's not nothing. That's a decent jump.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and there's also the rumored 4-way SMT coming down the pipe as well. Whether that ends up in Zen 3 or 4, it's probably Zen 4, but still.
Yeah.
With the licensing changes that VMware in particular has recently made, then that is going to play a factor as well.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you get diminishing returns with the more threads you add to a core, but...
You do. But there are ways to help that a little bit.
If you can harness all those threads, then that's probably a pretty decent performance uplift.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen 4-way, 8-way SMT and the
IBM.
Yeah, and IBM machines, these mainframes that are able to do it really well and without much of a performance problem.
Well, it depends on your workload, obviously.
Yeah.
Yes, it definitely will
Like
depend on the workload.
That's like what 128 threads for a 32 core CPU. That's a lot of threads.
Yeah.
And then you have like 256 for 64 cores.
Man, that's insane.
Yeah, I know. That's so many threads.
They're going to have to increase a lot of the bandwidth and caching for sure. Like I can see that requiring yet again another cache bump, and not just the one that we see, but another one.
We're going to see a gigabyte in L3 cache pretty soon.
Yeah.
Probably not on Zen 4. There's a good chance on Zen 5 or 6 that we're going to see a full gigabyte just in the CPU.
Just the way it's going, yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, like when you consider like the heat density stuff, there's a big incentive to put more into cache because cache doesn't use that much power, right?
Right.
Yeah, and it makes a good heat sink and a way to spread out the heat density for sure.
And it's a straightforward way to gain IPC also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So using that extra density pretty well. If you can't use it on the cores, use it on the cache.
Mm.
Okay, so what's the serve the home thing going on with the OEM selling the Xeon M parts?
Well,
I'm not too familiar with this.
There's two lines of Xeon CPUs. You got the Xeon M and you got the Xeon L, and one actually allows a higher memory capacity than the other. And they have to do some special stuff in the memory controller to enable that extra amount of RAM, and so it allows the Xeons to go all the way up to 4.5 terabytes of memory.
Yeah, I believe that might also have been a platform difference between the old Xeons and the Xeon. Like if you go from like the old Platinum and the new Gold, that might be one of the differences is memory capacity. Anyways, go on.
Usually they designate it with the M and L because of the special things they have to do to allow you to start putting these bank multipliers onto these servers, because they have to do some pretty funny stuff in order to get the full capacity, because it's not just by slotting stuff into the DIMM slots. They have to do expanders and things like that. So it gets pretty fancy. But they've been selling these what is now discontinued Xeon M parts at a higher price than they should, is what it really comes down to. Serve the Home went and actually looked at some of the different pricing stuff now that it's been, 6 weeks or so since they actually announced the change and the discontinuation. And we still have until May 8th before the last corporate assurance product critical date. The discontinuance is May 22nd, so it's coming up. But they just started the discontinuing January 15th, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
Serve the Home did update their article stating that HPE actually officially matched the L&M pricing, which is what it is. The pricing was different, and it was for essentially a discontinued part versus the part that's still under continuing cells. And I actually went and pulled up the configurators myself and saw that at least for the 8280 L&M on Dell, they are the same price now, but they do have some L&Ms of other Platinums that are still disproportionate in pricing, such as the 8276. And so it looks like there's, as the volume or as their stock dwindles, then it starts to dissipate and they'll start matching the price. I guess HPE just reached that first. I don't know. They're pretty level with Dell as far as the server ratio that they contain. And then there's Lenovo, which is still behind the 8280 L&M, are vastly different by like $3,500. And so they haven't caught up yet, but they're also like 11% of the server market. So they'll have some volume that they have to ship before they'll start getting the newer stuff in and phase out the old stuff. But you look at ARC, they're still, same price across the board. So it's at least up to date on ARC. But if you're purchasing a server, make sure you go and pull up Intel's ARC and look at the pricing there. And if you have to, submit that with your request for a bid to your vendor at Dell, HP, wherever you get your servers from. Probably even Supermicro. I probably should go and look at their stuff as well, just to see and just to make sure that you're going to get the best pricing. And like we showed you with this new chart that Matthew put together, look at these alternative CPUs, these R-series CPUs, and find the equivalent for the price point that you're looking at, but also the performance level you were looking at before with the old Platinums versus these new Golds. And make sure that you're getting the newest up-to-date price for your performance that you're asking for, because your sales guy isn't going to do that for you. Guarantee it.
In that chart, basically, 1 asterisk means the performance is lower, as is the price, and 2 asterisk means the performance is higher and the price is a little bit lower. That's basically what that means.
So give this a browse through, find the CPU you were looking to buy, go across the way here, look up the CPU on ARC, and make sure that it's equivalent performance to what you were wanting, CPU, gigahertz, all that kind of stuff, and ask for the new CPU, not the old one.
And save $1 or a few thousand.
Or get quite a bit of IPC or actually a gigahertz improvement for your server.
At the same time.
At the same price. Yeah, definitely do that. Okay, now, Matthew, you wanted to talk a little bit about Cloudflare, right?
Yeah. So I'm actually not familiar with this. I wanted to talk about it, but I don't know much about it. I think Aaron had to talk about it.
I mean, I saw it pop up in my news feed, and I read a little bit about it. Basically, Cloudflare, if you don't know, they are like a DDoS front end for websites. They help manage the flow of traffic so that your actual website host isn't exposed to the internet. It's actually your real IP is sitting behind Cloudflare, and they just kind of cache and serve your website through them, so that if a DDoS, a distributed denial of service attack, those kinds of things, if they're leveraged against your website or your hosting service, that Cloudflare is the one that takes the brunt of that and filters it so that your website doesn't fall over because you're hosting it on a single server in a data center somewhere. So it's got a really valuable thing there, as well as a little bit of performance by helping by caching some of your pages, that kind of stuff. So it's pretty valuable, but it also requires a lot of compute for their part. So they have data centers all over the world to help with this effort that they do. And they're actually launching things like a VPN service as well as a DNS service. So they've got a lot of things. They're putting their fingers in a lot of pots for sure. But their server infrastructure, you can see they were running a 48-core setup, which was just dual socket Xeon 6162s for a lot of their servers. And they're actually moving to a 48-core single socket EPYC. Now, why they're doing this, I'm assuming they went and did a cost comparison, power, that kind of stuff. I mean, you can see they're talking data compression, power efficiency, cryptographic key generation, and search performance, and more, obviously. So they made the decision that based on their workload, which is a lot of AES 256, by the way, and data compression, that EPYCs were the way to go for them. And it allowed them to do all that better than with the Intel parts at a lower price and more power efficient to do so. I mean, it
looks like they have a chart here too.
Yeah, it was a no-brainer for them.
And that also that additional density. In the chart it says they're using two 24-core Intels, and the EPYC is just a single 48-core.
Yeah, and this metric is in requests per watt. So you can see the EPYC was able to deliver significantly higher requests per watt.
This is MIBs per second, but...
Oh, the chart is? Yeah, I see.
Yeah, the chart,
MIBs
but we know that the EPYC is more efficient, so...
Yeah, they said the defining metric was requests per watt, and so... They were able
because they had to worry about the envelope, the power envelope that the data center allowed them to have.
Yep.
So
that's what that was all about.
Not too surprising. There was another company, Tencent. Yeah, Tencent did a similar thing.
Yeah, we did the report on that, a month or so back? When Tencent
I think
switched over.
That.
And so this, I wanted to just point out because it's yet another data center that's converting to EPYC. And a lot of people are not sure if EPYC was making a lot of data center penetration. This says it is.
At least the big ones. Maybe not the little ones, but definitely the big ones.
Well, I know it's making a lot of inroads into single server, not data center, but I'm talking SMB kind of level, where they have one or two servers that are running VMware or who knows what. It's making a lot of penetration into there too, because it's just more affordable. Where those companies, the things that they look at is how much is it going to cost me to run it, so power usage, and how much performance am I getting for the cost, which, especially on the low end, AMD is doing really well in that regard as far as cost per performance. And they could care less about other things such as the vulnerabilities and things like that, because it just doesn't matter to them. They're not running untrusted software on their servers. They don't really even care so much about what their end users are doing in virtual desktops on those systems, because there's 3 people that work there or even 20 people, and they trust them enough that they can't really afford to have security be a primary factor, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's just how it is. I guess the last thing we'll talk about is the GDC stuff. Yes, the plague. GDC has officially been postponed until summer. So we're not going to see it between March 15th and 20th. It's being pushed off until the summer. I guess they're in a wait and see kind of idea. Do they have a specific date set out for it yet?
It's a bit of a shame because my spring break lined up perfectly with GDC.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, sweet.
Done live blogging or something.
Yeah. I'm actually glad I didn't know it because I didn't make any plans for it.
I mean, right now we are just coming off of PAX East, and we know that Google, Facebook, a lot of big names actually pulled out of PAX East because of the plague, right? Because of COVID-19.
It's a bit of a shame, but it's not a huge deal. We'll get over it.
I mean, if you think about it,
there's plenty of time.
It's a little bit of an outbreak for sure, but what's the best way to handle or prevent the spread of a disease that's infectious? You don't gather in large groups, and you don't travel a lot. So I think the biggest things that are going to be impacted are conventions and airfare or flights, in general. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that don't want to be in a sardine can with 300 other people flying for 6 hours,
Yeah, and coronavirus, it isn't like extremely deadly. It is more deadly than the flu by a significant amount, but the flu itself is not that deadly, at least as long as you've been vaccinated and you're following good hygiene rules. Do you have that chart, Kirk?
Yeah, I pulled it up.
So there's there's a lot of figures for the mortality rate. It's somewhere between 2 and 5%. And that's only you really only have to worry about it if you have a compromised immune system, if you're if you're significantly older, like if you're like 50 and above,
or significantly younger,
and if you're like
5 or less
yeah,
kind of stuff.
that applies to most diseases.
Yeah, and
If you're
so
like
those are classified
if you're
as immunocompromised
yeah,
people, and so if you've been on HIV meds or transplant meds, those kinds of things.
yeah, so if you have like a serious case of coronavirus, if the symptoms are really bad, then your odds aren't as good as they could be,
Well,
but more likely or not you would survive.
and I think what they also mean by serious are people that have waited to get properly treated until a late stage in the virus, where they're like, I feel like I'm gonna die, I gotta go to the hospital, right? And I know that there are a portion of people that are either not insured or underinsured, or in developing countries, those kinds of things, where they don't have very good access to medical care, or they just
It's not
can't
just
afford
developing
it.
Countries.
Yes, it's the United States. Is also a big problem with that too. I mean, there's a lot of people that are uninsured here as well. That
It's not about the insurance. It's not all about the insurance, though. It's about like people will not be able to afford to stop working because we don't have like we at best you could say like maybe like we generally have like a couple days for sick leave.
Yeah,
That's
and then you have
about
to have a doctor's note after 2 days or whatever, and it's
and then you don't get paid. That's the problem.
yeah,
Like paid sick leave is the issue.
yeah. And a lot of people have to burn vacation time in order to do it, rather than having your sick leave that you're burning.
Yeah,
and it just depends on the corporation.
Some countries have like over 40 days. One country, I think Norway, has like 50 days of sick leave.
Yeah.
So those countries are very well prepared to deal with this.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things in the United States that help with that, such as like unions and things like that. I know that at my work we deal with a union that negotiates sick leave, and you actually get paid sick leave. So
now I would hope that that deal would be able to be made, considering that this is a pretty viral disease.
Yes.
And if it does spread, it will spread.
I would think that the employer would be more than happy to send you home with paid leave, just so you wouldn't infect the rest of the company. And honestly, that's partly why we're seeing such disruption from this this outbreak. Is people are not going to work. The employers are shutting down production for days as they isolate cases that pop up. They go and sanitize the entire workplace if somebody shows up to work with coronavirus.
I also feel like the exact opposite is going to happen. A lot of employers are going to be worried about losing the productivity, and they're not going to think about the consequences of
just tell you to show up anyway
until it's too late, especially in like the food industry.
Yeah.
Like, and that's like the worst time to tell someone that they have to come into work anyways.
Well, and
because
you think
that's
about
the best place to spread
the food
disease.
Industry. If you're working like as a server or a food preparer at a chain, like a fast food chain or something, you're not going to be able to afford to take time off. They're not going to want you to take time off. I mean, yeah, and you're handling food and giving it to people, fortunately with, at least a hairnet and gloves, but obviously not a face mask, for hundreds of people a day. Yeah, I mean, that's a breeding ground for sure.
I personally lost any kind of a hope I had that this won't be going around the world. I think we are past the point. We're just playing time, basically. It will just come like a wave sooner or later. So we just have to not panic if or when it comes. It's the flu after all. Yes, like Matthew said, and like the doctors are saying, is that those people with compromised immune systems, yep, they are in real danger. But that applies to influenza or any other diseases, infectious diseases.
This one just has a little bit higher death rate than the normal influenza virus.
Well, proportionally, it's quite a bit higher.
Yes.
But percentage-wise, it is still low.
Yeah. I mean, 2 to 5% is still nothing to shake a stick at. That's still pretty significant. But, that weighting also depends on whether you were immunocompromised to begin with as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are more apt to dealing with influenza, since that's not usually fatal and the symptoms aren't nearly as severe as opposed to this
And
one,
even
which is a severe respiratory infectious disease.
Even if you aren't immunocompromised, even if you're like my age and the odds of you even catching this disease are very low, you should practice good hygiene.
Yep.
Just in case, because you could catch it, you could spread it, you could spread it to someone that can't handle as well as you do. So make sure you just wash your hands. Washing your hands is the simplest way.
Well,
Exactly.
and if
It's
you're
as
not
simple as
washing
that.
your hands currently, then you probably should. But if you are washing your hands, you might not be doing it correctly, believe it or not, because they say 20 to 30 seconds with soap and water on the backs of your hands as well as the front and partly up your wrists and such. Make sure you scrub in almost like you're doing an operation, like you see the people on TV doing.
And also be aware of the surfaces you touch. I mean, if you go to a restaurant and then you go to the restroom to wash your hands, as you should, and then you touch again the handle of the restroom as you get out, that's not good.
Yeah, use the paper towel you
use
wiped
a
your
tissue,
hands off
exactly.
with to open the
Exactly.
door.
Right.
Don't touch
Push
it
it with a
directly.
Foot
Or
if you
just
can.
kick the door open.
Exactly.
Yeah, if it's a
So-
swing door or something, just push
No, it doesn't have to be a swing door.
kick the door open.
Yeah.
Boom!
I mean, push it
Bust
gently.
in like
but
the Kool-Aid
use your,
Man,
use your
right?
foot. Use your foot. I mean, use common sense, guys.
Yeah, and then
And,
the water fountains, use your pinky if you're going to touch it with a finger. Use your elbow or your arm to actually push in the bar to have the
Right.
water, rather than using your fingertips of all your fingers,
right.
Just little things like that to try to reduce your contact with the surfaces that could be carrying any disease, let alone coronavirus or something. I think
Yeah,
the thing
and
that
when it comes to your place, don't go to the supermarket and hoard on food and stuff. I mean,
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't want World War Z
Yeah.
kind of scenarios there.
I mean,
It's not necessary.
This is a good time to look at your food storage, like your dry packed foods and your boxed foods, things like that, and make sure that you have enough. You don't have to go and buy 3 months worth of survival kit, but just buy
1
a
week.
little bit more. Make sure you
Yeah.
have some good staple foods, rice, flour, or whatever you tend to use in your cooking. Just make sure you have a little bit more of it so that you can go for a month or so when there is a potential for less food on the shelves or something like that.
Now, what I am going to be hoarding personally is thermal paste, because Linus Linus is probably correct when he says the hardware prices are going to go up. So I've ordered about 10 gallons of thermal paste. That'll be coming here any day now.
Yeah, Arctic actually sent me a cooler for the Threadripper to test, and
Yeah, right.
they included a little 4 grams of MX4 thermal paste, and I had already purchased 4 grams because I knew I was going to be doing some CPU cooler testing with the Threadripper. So, but he's like, just if you need more thermal paste, just drop me a line and I'll throw in some more thermal paste in the next box we send you. And I'm like,
I need to beg Noctua for some more thermal paste, because eventually I will run out.
Yeah, Noctua's got some good stuff. I like the MX4 because it's almost or just about as good, but it's cheaper. So it's a good baseline for me to just use without having to go to Cryonaut and that kind of stuff and waste that for 2 days of testing,
If
Although-
Noctua tells me no, that's going to be real sad, because I'm going to have to redo some testing.
If Thermal Grizzly is listening, I would be more than happy to take 10 grams of Cryonaut, by the way.
I would too, but again, retesting. I don't want to retest.
Yeah, I use the MX4 as a baseline, and if it's not the paste that comes with the cooler, it'll be MX4 for me at this point.
No, I always use the Noctua stuff, because they sent me 5 coolers, so that's 5 tubes of thermal paste.
Yep.
So even for things that come with thermal paste, like, it's going to be about the same, to be fair.
Yeah.
It can't be much worse, or it can't be much better.
Well, there's charts
is
out there
fine.
that show you how much better or worse it is.
It's almost always within like a degree.
Celsius, yeah.
Yeah, not Fahrenheit.
Yes.
Not quite that good.
So yeah.
All right, I think we're done here.
Yeah, don't go crazy. This will be just like SARS and stuff before, where nothing terrible really came out of it and a lot of hype, but just be rational about things. Don't take time off of work for months hoping that you'll avoid getting sick or something like that. Just use your common sense. Don't listen to the fear mongering that's going around out there.
Exactly.
We're all going to die and have a zombie apocalypse kind of issue.
Yeah.
Because we're not, as long as people react accordingly, have proper hygiene practices, and limit your airfare, travel kind of stuff. Don't go to big conventions, those kinds of things. Don't go out of your way to do those, and you'll reduce your exposure significantly and help not spread the disease.
Yeah, but if it does turn into a zombie apocalypse and you did hoard, well, congratulations.
Yes, you'll be that much better off than the rest of us.
And you screwed everybody else over.
Yeah.
But yeah, just don't be that person that's rushing to the grocery store last day while everyone is cleaning the shelves. Make sure that you be that person that did that in advance while there was still stock. And having a proper food storage like that is always a good idea anyway, just for any kind of emergency, be it a loss of a job or a global pandemic. So we'll see how it plays out over the coming months. Hopefully it'll peter out like SARS and such did. So
Yeah.
bird flu. We all know the recent epidemics. But that's it for this one. Thank you guys for listening. Be sure to
Thank
hit
you.
that subscribe button. That definitely helps with YouTube wanting to recommend our video to people that haven't really been exposed to AdoredTV yet. Do hit that like button. And if you throw comments on the video, that's even better too, because a highly commented video also gets weighted better for YouTube as well. So do those things. Hit that alarm button to make sure that you'll get notified when the next one comes out. You can check out the Patreon for AdoredTV, as well as checking out our primary AdoredTV channel, where you can listen to Jim talk some more about some really cool analyzing that he does on a regular basis. So check that out as well, and we will see you in the next one.
Yes. See you guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.